feet or something like that. It just went down to the water. I was under 609.7, still out of boat. 9 o'clock position, it looked like an explosion of some sort, about maybe 6 miles out from my 9 o'clock position. Explosion 6 miles out at your 9 o'clock position. Thank you very much, sir. Contact New York approach 125.7. 257. TWA 800, set up.
TWA is such a family that for a family to lose 53 members of its immediate family was devastating, not just for me, but for everybody in TWA. Everyone else just, everyone. We just walked around kind of in shock, thinking, how could this happen? 53 of us are gone.
I was angry. I was angry because I felt betrayed by TWA. I was angry because my brother was gone. I was angry because I was finding out how many people that I knew, flight attendants, active, retired, were on that flight. I was just pretty angry. And I had firmly believed, I had seen that night, a short clip of what appeared to be a missile on the radar screen on CNN heading towards the flight. So I firmly believed, and still do, that a missile took down that plane.
We like to think that in America, those who seek the truth will be respected, even honored. But in the case of TWA Flight 800, those who did were ignored, even reviled. This program will tell you why. To preserve its integrity, we use raw footage from various sources of varying quality. We thank you for your forbearance, and we thank those who, despite the costs, have never failed to seek the truth. On the evening of July 17, 1996, at 8:19 p.m., TWA Flight 800, a Boeing 747, took off from Kennedy Airport bound for Paris. It headed east without incident in fair skies along the south coast of Long Island. About 8:30 p.m., Mike Wire, a mechanic, saw a streak of light rise up from behind the house and head southeast away from shore. At the same time, Dwight Brumley, a senior Navy NCO on board U.S. Air Flight 217, watched a streak of light rise up towards his plane before leveling off and heading north towards Long Island. Lisa Perry from her Fire Island deck and Paul Angelides from his on West Hampton both followed the southbound streak towards eastbound Flight 800, and then each saw the northbound streak rise off the horizon at the last moment. At 8:31, FAA radar operators saw an unknown object streak up and merge with Flight 800. This they reported to the highest authorities. At that same moment, FAA radar picked up something else unusual.
There was a ship directly beneath Flight 100 when it crashed. We know very little about this ship. The government tells us they have not been able to identify that ship, although the government says they didn't even notice it for 6 months into the investigation, although it was tracked by aircraft radar. We know it was traveling away from the scene rather than towards it. Didn't help in search and rescue. It was traveling very fast, and it was likely very large since, aircraft radar picked it up at a good, 15 miles, 20 miles.
This is highly suspicious. It breaks every rule in the book. I don't care whether you're a civilian sports fisherman, whether you're a warship, or whether you're a high-speed private yacht that came over here and took a shot. They ran from one of the greatest air disasters in history. You don't do that at sea.
At 8:31, Flight 800 exploded catastrophically, killing all 230 of the good souls aboard. All leads pointed in one direction, but for reasons still uncertain, no one in official Washington wanted to go there.
We're hoping that we're going to find some survivors at this time.
After the crash, thousands of workers made a great good faith effort to redeem the bodies and to retrieve the wreckage, but not everyone. Although empowered by Congress to take charge of such scenes, the National Transportation Safety Board failed to do so.
Justice Department came in, remember, with all those FBI agents, and one assistant U.S. attorney in New York tells the NTSB, shut up and sit down. When Title 49 gives Mr. Hall the authority to tell her to shut up and sit down.
According to the New York Times, senior NTSB officials were furious. In times past, they might have resisted. Not in 1996. 2 years prior, President Clinton harnessed this once proud agency when he named Jim Hall, an old Gore crony from Tennessee, chairman of the NTSB board. Hall's best qualification, said the Washington Post, was his driver's license. The FBI would not let the NTSB interview eyewitnesses, not even Major Fritz Meyer, an Air National Guard pilot who stared the explosion in its face from his helicopter above Long Island.
And lo and behold, the man who was the head of the team for the NTSB is Norm Wiedemeyer, an old squadron buddy of mine from HC-7 in Vietnam. And we shook hands. We hadn't seen each other for 30 years. And after the interview was over, when I told him essentially what I just told you, we walked out. And as we walked out together, you know, we were saying, well, what have you been doing? What have you been doing? And he said to me, he said, you know, he said, I've been trying for 6 months to get to see you and interview you. And I said, Norm, I'm in the phone book. Just pick up the bloody phone. And he said, the FBI forbade.
The FBI, however, showed curiously little interest in what key witnesses had to say.
I went to a trailer there, which was an FBI trailer. I knocked on the door, they opened the door, and I told them who I was and told them I wanted to give them a statement. They looked around for somebody. There were 5 of them standing there, and they would say, well, you do it, no, you do it, no, you do it, no, you do it, no, you do it. And finally they picked what appeared to me to be the junior man, and we went into the back room of the trailer where he took out a 2.5 by 3-inch little spiral notepad and a ballpoint pen, and he asked me my name and particularly my address, and I gave it to him. And then he said, what did you see? And I told him the entire story that I've just told you. He wrote nothing down, and when I finished in about five minutes, I said, do you have any questions? And he said, no, and I left. Now that was my sole interview with the FBI.
1 month after the crash, the FBI ceased altogether. Not a single interview took place for nearly 2 months. Since then, the FBI has re-interviewed fewer than 2% of the witnesses. Why the lack of interest? As the world would soon learn, there was no physical evidence to back up testimony of a missile strike.
Different organizations within the government and outside the government who looked at the metal all came to the same conclusion that there was no physical evidence of a bomb or a missile warhead exploding.
It's clear from the physical evidence that neither a bomb nor a missile strike was the cause of the explosion aboard Flight 800.
State unequivocally, the safety board has found no evidence.
Physical evidence is almost always the key.
Only one problem. The authorities were slighting or suppressing talk of a missile long before the physical evidence was collected and reconstructed.
That was the part that bothered most everyone. It was within days that all of a sudden you heard nothing about missile.